So please feel free to ask a lot of questions, challenge us, and actually make this a fun hour that's beneficial to you. So with that, Roberto, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate that. All right. As Dennis had mentioned, session number 3, we're now on to introduction for the model for improvement through IHI. And as always, here is the session outline of what to expect. All the little segment where I do a review of previous week's work. So be kind, please rewind. I'll be going through IHI QI history, such like I did with Lean, and then understanding the IHI's models 3 key components, as well as project selection, and then importance of clear project aims. Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to do this meeting, but I'm trying to.
Paulo, you're not muted.
I'm so sorry. Let me mute that. I was
Okay, so let me advance. I apologize, I didn't advance that during that pause there. So there's the session outline. And then, so a little review of the past session, number 2. I had introduced the 2 main contributors towards Lean, Kiichiro Toyoda, as well as Taiichi Ohno, and the respective positions, one as really the family member of the Toyota lineage and his contributions towards segmenting the factory floor into discrete areas and then focused improvement. And then Taiichi Ohno's involvement with management styles and really progression into these numerous TPS, Toyota Production System principles, Jidoka, Kaizen, just-in-time, and then value stream mapping, which we'll learn more about later. And in that, you learn also more about different wastes that exist and how the Toyota Production System was examined and then translated into what we now know as Lean. Lean has similar principles around it, and you can see it in this little swirly figure there at the bottom, which says identify value, map the value stream, create flow, establish pull, and seek perfection. So essentially a framework for how to go about improving something. And then utilizing what we know as the waste wheel. There are 7 wastes listed there. There have been more expanded upon, waste and talent. And these wastes should definitely be utilized as a lens when you're looking at a specific process that you're looking to improve upon. So just to kind of run through really quickly, calling it out time. So are there any time wastes? Are there any defects? Is there any waste in motion of a specific product or a person? So motion versus transportation. Meaning, do I need to go clear across my office to get a stapler when I wish I had one maybe in a more central area along with others that I work with closer by? So we're not just kind of hoarding that stapler and it's going from desk to desk, right? Overproduction, making sure that if we're creating something, we're not overdoing it more than what's necessary. Inventory, as you might imagine, if you store way too much of something, then there might be a waste of space. And also maybe that something might also expire if there's an expiration date on it. Processing. Are you ensuring that you're making sure that there's no unnecessary processes and operations that are unnecessary? So what is necessary? And then I shared a little bit about the role of someone in performance improvement and how there's different hats that that person may wear, kind of depending upon the team that is surrounding maybe the person who's most knowledgeable on performance improvement. So just to kind of break it down with these little blue circles here, performance and skill sets, that's what we're learning throughout this series. Change management skill sets. So think of that as how to do, there's various things there, but how do you encourage and move a team forward? And then project management skills. Those are the nuanced actual team meeting pieces. And one of the tools that I really enjoy is what's called a Gantt chart. And Gantt chart is I know it's a very small picture, but just meant to be a kind of reminder. That's that Excel chart that I have down below. And for me, I really enjoy it because it breaks down all of the areas of work that I plan to do. It also breaks down more details that say, okay, well, who's responsible for a specific item or task? And then over a period of time, when do I expect that task to be completed? And that for me helps me to understand, well, what's maybe my bandwidth or the bandwidth of my team, because I'm seeing, oh, wow, make believe Joe Bob has several things on his plate. If I understand that several of those things are happening at the same exact time, oh boy, maybe I might want to jump in there and help to reprioritize things, or maybe shift some of those expectations over a period of time. And I can show this visually with other people on my team, so everyone kind of understands how are each other contributing towards the overall goal, what activities are being done, what's the priority to be worked on. And so we can really understand the full magnitude of this work. Okay. So there's a little, be kind, please rewind. All right, so now we're jumping into session 3, where we're talking about IHI QI. So this is, again, there's two big models that I'm looking at and discussing throughout this series. It's Lean, and then it's also IHI's, which is Institute for Healthcare Improvement, Quality Improvement. And they are very similar in nature, and the reason why I'm moving forward with these two is these are ones that are often we hear about, or you may hear about, surrounding performance improvement within the health industry. And throughout this series, I'll be kind of sharing pieces and components of each, and how whether they complement with each other, or maybe there's some differences. But how are you kind of doing things here within Contra Costa County, at least how I've been demonstrating it over time. Okay, so I previously mentioned these large figures, Walter Shewhart, William Deming, Edward Deming, and then Joseph Juran, engineers, statisticians who heavily contributed towards what we know today as statistical process control. And we will learn more about the various graphs and charts that they developed, and how we can use those to measure our success over time. Okay, so data, right? They brought in data into this framework, as well as William Edward Deming's system of profound knowledge. So it influenced Lean, and it also influenced IHI's quality improvement. So just to speak to it, the IHI QI was informed by these three people, specifically Deming's system of profound knowledge. And if you remember that one, that was what we had introduced in session 1. Okay. And then they had, IHI had also noticeable influence through the Associates in Process Improvement, a group who had also created what we know as the Improvement Guide, or wrote the Improvement Guide. And I highly recommend it if you got time to read through 200 to 300 pages. It's a great book. It really lays out the whole series in detail of performance improvement and rationale behind why. So I highly recommend it. And so it's another resource that I'll be kind of encouraging people to look into throughout this series. All right, and then outside of that, IHI has a large network of improvement advisors and IHI fellows and other strategic partners that have influenced IHI's work over time. And so IHI has definitely continued to evolve as it's how they perform QI. And I'll share next more into detail what that looks like. All right, lots of words here, so I'll definitely work our way around this slide. So where Lean, I think I had introduced, certainly there's a thought process on manufacturing, right? So Lean was developed from Toyota Production System, which is Toyota's car company. And as you might, as you know, they manufacture vehicles, and we think of that as, okay, got it. A lot of moving parts, vehicles going down conveyor belts, so to speak. And IHI has an approach, very similar approach, but they have a more larger theory-based network that they combine to then overlay on Edward Deming's system of profound knowledge. So I mentioned in the last slide, and just to kind of call out, there are 4 components of Edward Deming's system of profound knowledge: appreciation of system, psychology of people, and advancing how do we work with one another, knowledge, right? How do you expand knowledge and the tools that we use, and then understanding variation in data. So if that is the base of IHI, then the various theories that exist overlay on top of that that system of profound knowledge. And so there's a lot of various theories and models that the IHI look towards as key influencing theories to use in performance improvement. And I won't speak through them all, but you can see decision theory, rehabilitation theory, social network theory, program evaluation, regression, design of experiments. So all of these theories are kind of brought in the kind of a chest of IHI to utilize, and really it kind of depends greatly on the scope or the scale or the context of the work that performance improvement is involved in. So in order to be successful, there are some obviously things that need to happen. You know, you need to have, certainly there needs to be that will, right? We're talking about that psychology, the moral engagement and energetic action to improve. Or there needs to be ideas, right? You can't, you need to be able to have either individual or group of people come together and agree upon certain ideas that they feel will influence a later change towards a desired goal. And then execution. And this can be through project management, using certain techniques to, again, will translate into improvement. Okay, so I know that's a little complex, and with the amount of different theories that exist, but they are certainly ever expanding as this area of performance improvement continues to expand, and thinking about, especially, I know there's more about social network theory that continues to expand regularly. Okay, so one of the key pieces, and some of you may have heard, I think IHI most prominent, is the model for improvement. The model, again, it's another model that showcases how to go from A to B to C and so on and so forth. And the model for improvement has 3 key questions that it asks. It says, what are we trying to accomplish? How will we know that a change is an improvement? And then what change can we make that will result in improvement? And then I know it might be a little confusing because you're looking at that left screen and you can see a little swirly box with the arrows below it that says Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's also known as PDSA cycle, CPDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act. So what you'll see is these 3 questions help to outline exactly how do you progress through a project. And in the first and second session, I had brought this back to maybe something you might be aware of, at least for many years now, through schooling. And so it's the scientific method, right? And so it's observation, question, hypothesis, experiment, analysis, and conclusion. And you can see how these 3 questions might overlay that scientific method and other methods that we're learning about. Right? What are we trying to accomplish? So what, right? You need to understand a certain base of, well, is something bad happening? Is it something good happening, but could be even better? And then certainly surrounding that, there are many other components that we'll talk about and later sessions, like probably the very next session, to understand, well, what data might I need to really understand what the situation it is right this moment. If it is bad, how do I know it's bad? Okay, and then just to kind of show a little bit more about or share a little bit about the PDSA, and you see this little diagram here, you can see almost like a rotating ball of PDSA. And it's meant to be just a visual of a rotating activity that is being done. So the idea is, as you progress through these questions, just like you see with the scientific method, you're kind of progressing down. What are we trying to accomplish? How do we know that a change is an improvement? What change can we make that will result in improvement, right? What change? So that means you have a certain idea that you want to test. You think you know the solution, but remember, a solution is something that's actually has been defined as actually making a change on whatever it is that you're actually working on. So it's a solution versus a test or an idea, right? An idea isn't necessarily a solution until it's been tested. So if you need to test something, that what this cycle provides is a breakdown of just, again, a working through, I need to plan out my experiment, I need to do my experiment, I need to study the outcome of my experiment or my idea, and then I need to then decide on a few pieces or a few ideas. So do I need to adapt it? Because maybe I want to go ahead and change it up a little bit and then test it again. Maybe I might want to adopt it, meaning, hey, no tests, no differences need to be made. It did exactly what I needed to do. And so I'm going to full scale adopt, and then really start thinking about, can I continue to test this to make sure that I'm actually right on this. And then, or, guess what? Abandon. You feel like, whoa, I was totally off mark here. It didn't lend, during my experiment, it didn't lend towards the change that I was looking towards. And I think we now know enough as a team, we really need to shift gears or test a different idea. So we go ahead and abandon. I'll continue to layer this over time, but you can see in this little diagram in the very beginning or in the middle here, the words very small scale tests, super, super important, right? You don't want to necessarily test an idea and make it wide scale change. Like for instance, if I'm going to actually, if I want to test maybe the layout of my how patients come through our clinic, the waiting room. Maybe I want chairs over here. Maybe I want a standing area over here. Maybe I want the clerical support up front who is taking in the patients at a certain area. And maybe I want to test that out. Well, if I'm going to test that out, it probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to test it out in every single clinic space that we have in the system and saying, great, let's do it. Because that's not necessarily a test. That's a full out operational change. And it's just someone had the idea and it happened. And I think the reverse to consider is, what if we didn't do a good job? What if we didn't actually think through that? And actually we find out we're having some of our mobile challenge kind of patients standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down, moving from left to right, and that's that's not respectful towards our patients and what we want to do. So we would want to consider small scales of change, and then based upon our learnings, we're expanding. We're testing in other sites. So like this says, very small scale test, follow-up tests until we really figure it out. Do we like it? Do we not? Then we go ahead and spread to wide scale tests of change, and then implementation of change, because now we're done with our testing. We're actually saying, yeah, that's the solution. And now we're saying, great, I'm going to implement it, and I'm going to ensure there's like built-in sustainability. And Dennis, feel free if you have any comments there, if you want to jump in.
I have a little exercise for the team, for
Great.
everybody. Once you're ready, yeah, I have a little 5-minute exercise for everybody on the line. And Jane and Bernadita, I'm looking at you as our rock stars. So I continue with that first question in the SMART goal, then I'll ask
Perfect.
we'll do our exercise. So you guys get ready.
Okay. I think we'll get there, and then I'm excited for your application here. So what I want to do is kind of just bring it back and simplify. I know I'm layering various frameworks but I want to kind of have one that I'll move forward with, and this will be incorporating Lean. It'll be incorporating IHI amongst other models, just so that we're kind of all saying, great, so what are we selecting here? What are we moving forward with? But again, my intention is to showcase these various models so that y'all are familiar with maybe different terminology you've heard and where it's coming from. So what I'll do is I'm going to move forward with this framework here. So assess, identify, test, spread, sustain. And we can talk, and we'll be talking a bit through this more. And you'll see that with assess, it actually lines up with IHI's model for improvement with that first question that says, what are we trying to accomplish? Okay. And then you'll see that the additional questions kind of lay over, and then there's some additional pieces to it as well. I won't jump forward, so I'm going to want to just take this first item to really help to mold the foundation of what we're trying to achieve. So assess, what are we trying to accomplish? So in doing assessing, I did mention that we really need to understand what are we trying to achieve, right? What are we trying to accomplish? And there are certain things that we need to know first to really hone in before we start testing things, right? So the way that we do that are, we will utilize a few tools here, or a few kind of thoughts. One is we need to start building upon if it is a team or it's yourself, what is your actual maybe goal, or maybe, and this is a building process. So why were you even, let's say, if you oversee a certain area, maybe you might have charged yourself to improve something. Maybe someone else charged you to improve something. But what actually was it? And I think it's important to understand sometimes the connotation of is it a negative or is it a positive? And sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter. You're understanding or digesting what that thing is, because sometimes it can be, well, we're having a problem with let's say, what's something that's not too patient falls. I mean, it's one thing that we want to be really careful with individuals and mobility as they move throughout our facilities. At least, again, I'm over at the hospital standpoint, right? So we want to make sure there's no tripping hazards. We're making sure we're understanding people's limitations and supporting them with what's needed to move from place to place. So if there is all of a sudden an increase in patient falls, it's something that we immediately need to address, right? To protect safety, and if we say certainly that's a negative, right? That's a problem. Then we need to go ahead and address it, and then we need to think about, well, what's in the positive nature? What am I thinking about then? If I'm trying to improve something, what's the positive here? So I need to understand data. So all of this, what I'm talking about, is what we'll learn in just a bit about an aim statement. Otherwise, you can also utilize the term a SMART goal. And I'll talk about the differences there, but you'll see overall that it will achieve essentially the same thing. But again, this is my bringing different pieces of information together so that you're aware of different kind of nomenclature that people utilize. So aim statements, SMART goals. And then we'll learn more in the next session about charter development. So this is where you're putting your various parameters of what you're actually going to do within your performance improvement project. And the idea behind a charter is you're putting it all on paper so that you, your supervisor, or whoever you may be working with, or the team that you're working with can really truly understand are we trying to accomplish. I'll walk through in detail, but I think you're starting to imagine, okay, what goes on a charter? Well, certainly your goal should be on there. Certainly some background information around why this problem exists. Who is your team members that may be contributing towards the work in the future, or people who can help. And then I keep mentioning about data, and so what data might help you to really understand the background of what's actually happening here. So if there's specific measures, if there's specific things that you're going to look at, it's important to capture as you start thinking through this project, so that you can possibly track that specific data over time. Okay. And then, of course, there's a voice of the customer, and the voice of the customer can be different layers. It could be people who are most close to the problem at hand. If it's people on your team, that's important. If it's people in other disciplines that are impacted by this work, great. It could be if it is patients who are impacted, then you would want to understand, well, what do they want, right? How do you ensure that you are capturing everyone's voice to best understand where this project is going and what are the needs and how those needs translate into actual future work? But it's important to capture. Okay. And then, so I think I'm excited here because I think the first bits we had talked a lot about history and components and principles and theories, and I think everyone's kind of ready to start. Okay, so where's the actual performance improvement? So I share the framework that we'll move forward with and some of the tools that we'll be learning along the way. And I first want to take a quick step back and saying, well, before you jump in, let's start talking about the project real quick. And just so they're all on the same page, what do I mean about performance improvement and projects to take on? So from the body management or project management body of knowledge through PMI, also known as the Project Management Institute, they gave a good definition of a project here. And that's a project can be defined as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service. Projects are different from other ongoing operations in an organization, but unlike operations, projects have a definite beginning and an end. They have a limited duration. I think that's really important to think about with your PI projects. There's a beginning and an end. Okay. All right. So then, now that you know, we all have agreed what is a project, then you say, well, PI projects. What's a good PI project to do? Is there little nuances or caveats to what's a good project versus a bad project? So to share, a good project would have a well-defined problem to solve that can be measured. And it is large enough in scope to positively impact strategic goals, right? You want your project to be tied to something larger. You don't want to, necessarily go rogue and not get the approval of your supervisor or an executive sponsor, because then maybe you might have limitations with you progressing through that project because maybe you're not given the right amount of respected time to complete that project. Maybe you won't get the necessary additional resources you might need in order to complete that project. So you want your project connected to an organizational goal or strategic goal. But at the same time, you want it small enough in scope that you or your team can implement and test changes rapidly. Okay, that if it gets too big, you're going to be including many people, and I'm imagining many opinions. And so if some of you have heard that phrasing, too many cooks in the kitchen, can easily happen. And so how can you scope it down enough, especially if this is something you're new to, PI projects, that's something you really want, something tangible that you can really test these methodologies. So what is something that's small enough in scope that you can have control over, or you've given an approval to have control over, and you can test things rapidly. And rapid tests are important because you want to be able to see change. You don't want to wait many months down the line to see if a certain test actually impacted anything. You want to see, okay, I have an idea. Let me test right now, small scale, and see if it did anything. If it didn't do exactly well, but I'm kind of on the right track, I'm going to test again. I'm going to keep testing again. Okay, so what kind of scope does that look like? Okay, and then we have the inverse, bad. So you can kind of derive from what I was talking about, solution already determined before you start. So right, I had said a solution, it means someone has said, yeah, that is the answer, and then if you have the solution, then you don't necessarily have to test. There's no ideas to test. So there's no ideas to test, then it's not necessarily utilizing the methodologies that we'll be speaking through, right? What are we trying to accomplish? And so you want to, if you can, well, just defining that. And on the next slide, I'll talk about what you can do if that is you're in that realm of a solution that's already been determined. You want implementing a program spread. If you're implementing a program spread, much like the first one, that means there's already a solution, it's already kind of going, and you're not really testing anything. And then there's ongoing operational work, very similar in nature. It's just kind of ongoing, right? So thinking back to what we learned about with project, is there a start, is there an end? So what if you can, what can you do if your project, at least from my framework here, is bad? Well, if there's a solution already determined before you start, is there any way you can back up a little bit? Is there any way that someone might be allowing you to test some additional ideas? If you're implementing program spread, is there any way that one of those sites or one of those areas might maybe be custom tailored in a different way for you to test out certain things? If there's ongoing operational work that's assigned to this, are there existing problems embedded in the workflow that you might be able to investigate and truly understand to potentially do some form of improvement? And then portfolio, as I mentioned, big in nature, stay away from the big portfolio projects. Is there any way for you to scope down? Is there any way for you to make to have a project that's more smaller in nature, that's more tangible, that's more nimble to move from place to place to test over and over? All right. So now, again, know what a project is. Now we can start, again, jumping into the fun part, which is aim statements. This is we're at the very beginning here, right? So with aim statements, so it's a term here that we'll use. It's, think of aim, right? You're aiming towards something. It's a goal out there in the future that we want to achieve. If it's a dartboard, it's that exact center. We're aiming for that. So when we when we have an aim, we also want to have an aim statement, just to have a really crisp, clear, what are we trying to achieve, right? Bringing us back to that language. So components of an aim statement. We're talking about a goal, right? What are we trying to accomplish? People should be incorporated into this statement. Who does this improvement project help or impact? And then time. When do you want to reach your goal, our goal? Okay. If you have those three components into an aim statement, you've got a good aim statement. And then I'll share more about other verbiage of an aim statement known as a SMART goal coming up. Okay, here's a quick example of a very simple general aim statement. So I want to grow 5 tomato plants within 3 months. This is coming from like 0. So I have no tomato plants. So going from 0 to 5 tomato plants within 3 months for a community garden. And as you can see, I've incorporated those 3 components that I had shared in my previous slide, right? The goal. I can make this more robust by saying go from 0 to 5 tomato plants, but essentially grow 5 tomato plants within the time frame of 3 months. And the people who impact is, of course, myself, but also a community garden, because maybe I'm contributing towards that. Okay. Now, I want to actually speeding through this here. So I want to be able to share some other language that you may hear about called a SMART goal. And SMART goals, that again, differences in languages. Remember, I'm bringing different items to you, lean and IHI. And so I'm getting you kind of familiar with different terms, but ultimately achieving the same goal here or the same outcome. So with a SMART goal, I enjoy it because it's definitely a acronym here. And so S, specific, M, measurable, A, achievable, R, relevant, T, time-based. And so again, you'll see how that's similar in nature as an aim statement. So when I say specific, make your goal specific and narrow for more effective planning. This goes into that nature of scoping it down, making sure that it's tangible and nimble for you to make change. Measurable, make sure your goal and progress are measurable. So is there, it needs to have, you need to be able to document or track. If you're doing a test, is there measurable changes over time? And then achievable, make sure you can reasonably accomplish your goal within a certain time frame. Obviously, absolutely. We don't want to say some very unreasonable thing. I'm going to get this large scale goal done by next week, or I'm going to, it's going to take me 3 years. It's going to take me 3 years to get this thing done, and right, that's not reasonable, and I don't think anyone's going to necessarily accept that type of goal over time. And then relevant, your goal should align with your values and long-term objectives. This is in line with what I had shared about strategic goals, organizational goals, making sure that it is connected to various initiatives that have been set. And then time-based, set up realistic but ambitious end date to clarify tap prioritization and increase motivation. Right. So tomato plant. Grow 5 tomato plants, 3 months for a community garden. Great. And there's a whole lot of stuff in between there. And we'll talk more about a breakout of, well, what's next after you created an aim statement. Okay. I think that's where I paused, Dennis.
Okay, super. No, thank you. Okay, everybody, this is where they call the class participation time. So Cynthia, Jean, Letty, Eve, Melinda, Melanie, Natalie, Nicole, Erica, Melinda, Paulo, Marie, Daisy, Bernadina, Gerald. If you're on the line, this is what we want you to do. And you're going to put it in the chat. And I'm going to give you a total of a couple minutes. Okay, so we'd like for you to create a personal aim statement, something that's personal to you. So my example is, remember how Roberto said it's really clear. You need to know where you're at today, where you want to go, by when, and who's it going to impact. In this particular case, it's going to impact you. So my aim statement for today is, I currently can do 50 push-ups in a minute as of February the 15th. My goal or my aim is to get to 60 push-ups in 1 minute by March 31st, 2024. So I can do 50 now. My goal is to get to 60 by March 31st, and that's my aim statement. Now, this is just an aim statement because the catch is, like Roberto said, if you don't have an aim statement, all the projects that we do, your leaders will say, okay, you did all this great work, you met with all the teams, and you redesigned this, but what was the outcome that was actually achieved? I don't want to hear anything else, just the outcome that was achieved. So that's why the aim statement is so important. So now I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes and put it in the chat. Your personal aim statement. Where are you at? Where do you want to go? And by when? And then, Gene, we're going to call on you to actually share yours personally.
I'll be monitoring this chat. Can't wait to see it all come through.
Yeah, you get 2 minutes. Okay, we want some good aim statements. We have one. We got two. All right. All right. These are good. These are good. Keep them coming. We're going to read them out. Okay, Nicole. Currently getting 6 to 7 hours of sleep at night. Want to get to 7.5 hours sleep at night by March 15th. Excellent. Letty, I currently can complete a 5-mile hike in 1 hour and 40 minutes. My goal is to complete the hike in 1 hour and 20 minutes by May, let's say May 31st. Okay, that's great. Cynthia, my shed is nearly full. And I want to clean it out and organize it by Saturday, March the 2nd. This is good, but by nearly full, you got to actually be a little bit more specific. Okay, is it 80% full and you would like to get it to 50% full? Okay, these are great. Jean, I've read 2 books this year. My goal is to read 15 books by December 31st. Okay, that's excellent. Okay, and so you average about 2 books a month, so you should be able to do that. That's good. Let's keep them coming. Okay, Cynthia, you're awesome. It's 80% full, and I like to have it at 40% full. Way to go. Okay, Melanie, I can squat 15 reps right now since my knee injury. By April 15, 2024, I hope to be able to squat 15 reps with 10-pound weights. Awesome. Eve, personal aid, currently at 10 minutes per day for morning mindfulness. My goal is to increase it to 20 minutes per day by March 22nd. Excellent. These are great. Keep them coming. We got a couple more before we move on. Bernadetta, I don't do much outside activity at work for wellness. I want to improve my personal activity by attending music and wellness groups during lunch by Friday, February 23rd. Okay, that's good. So the only thing is, though, Bernadette, you might want to actually think about, when you say don't do much, what does that look like? Much is on average week, 5 days, I get out 1 time a week or no times a week. And so you might want to just put some numbers in there so you can measure. Gerald, all right. Gerald, I don't know if I believe this. I swim a 45-minute mile. That's pretty good. My goal is a 35-minute mile by August 2024. Okay, Gerald, that's awesome. And so also with the, say, SMART goals or the aims, put by August 31st or August 1st, that way is as tight as possible. Okay, so I think everybody gets the gist of this. And so now, as Roberto said, so now you got a specific goal. That second question was, how will we know a change is an improvement? Guess what? You're going to do something. So Gerald, what are you going to do to get it down by 10 minutes? In between now and August, what are you going to do? And whatever it is you're going to do, Gerald, can you come off mute? Whatever it is you're going to do, that becomes your experiment in question number 3. Okay? Yeah. I'm going to practice my breaststroke a little bit more. I'm going to do more running. I'm going to practice 5 days a week. So that doing is your experiments or your PSAs to actually reach your goal. Swim twice a week, perfect. And then once you swim twice a week, you're actually going to say, did you do it? Yes or no? And you might want to say swim twice a week for 30 minutes. And then you're going to check off, okay, Tuesday and Thursday, did I do it? Yes or no? And then I'm going to keep track of that. Okie doke. So that's how they kind of work together. So you have your aim. How will we know changes and improvement? We're going to use measures with data. And then what experiments or what are you going to do to actually go from point A to point B? Okay, questions on that? Anybody, does everybody pretty much have that concept? So you can start this in your personal lives as well as at work. One thing at work, one thing, it's the beginning of the year, 2024. Hopefully everybody got their 2024 goals in. One thing, these are your top 3 or 4 goals. Be as specific as possible, and then come up with a plan. How are you actually going to get there? That's what we're talking about when we talk about improvement. Okay? So back to you, Roberto.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate the focus on the measurement. I think this reminds me of that famous Don Berwick quote with right, some is not a number, and what is it? When is not a time, I think it was, or soon is not a time. So right, we can't utilize those soon or some within our statements, because then we what does that actually mean? So
And it's very good to use that like on your performance evaluations or when you set your goals, because guess what? No one can hold you accountable.
yeah,
Some to me is different from some to you. So,
right.
So when your boss says, okay, hey, I think you were average and you think you knocked it out the park, you said, well, see, I had, like we were going to do some. And my definition of some was different than your definition of some. So
Absolutely.
that's why you want to be as specific as possible. But go for it though, Roberto.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dennis, for that demonstration and that activity. So we're at the starting blocks. I'm actually wrapping up at our the session actually now. Let me just make sure I got my slide here present. Yeah. And where we're going to next, as we see, you've shown in the outline, or I've shown in the outline, we're next going to start talking about charter development and going more into the weeds with the different components needed. And I'm really excited that you guys are starting with the aim statement and you're starting to get your heads around where how to make it work. And so certainly for at this point in time is that as we start to truly dive deeper in, and I'm going to lead you through the various tools of performance improvement, think about what project you want to utilize for this series. Okay. I know a lot of the examples.
And then with that though, Roberto, if I can actually chime into here too, for we're going to meet in 2 more weeks. Everybody should have their 2024 goals.
Mm-hmm.
Pick one of your goals that you don't know the exact approach that you're going to actually utilize to get there, and actually build an aim statement for one of your personal goals. Just one. This is my aim statement. I'm going to go from Y to X by, even if it's December 31st, 2024. And then with that, what we'd like for you to do is bring that back. And then what we want to do is talk through how to set that up as a little baby project. And then actually, what would that actually take? And how do you use these lean tools or these other tools to actually accomplish your goal? So first start with your goal. So everybody comes back in 2 weeks and say, this is my aim statement. And even if you send that to Nisha or so, say, I have an aim statement, then we can actually probably look at a couple of those and say, okay, specifically, Gerald again, since I know Gerald, what are you going to do? What's your approach or your project plan for reaching your aim statement? Who's your team? Do you have a charter? What approach are you going to use? Are you going to look at the current state, how they do it now, and then actually create a future state and then actually do a gap analysis? Or are you just going to go around and interview people? What exactly are you going to do? And that's what we want to find out so we can actually walk through and make this as real as possible and doable for everybody to say, okay, hey, I got this. It's my real goal. And this is how I'm going to actually use this through, say, this little program. And that's when, like, say, Erica and Anna, they'll love it. Hey, I really used the stuff that I learned, and we've actually, more importantly, we saw an improvement.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dennis. Absolutely. So we're reiterating, we'll be ready to talk in a couple of weeks with your defined goal. And we'll be utilizing this goal throughout this 12 session series, and super excited to help you go from tool use to tool use. And again, the next step was we're going to dive deeper into what exactly are the components of a charter. And then we'll start even thinking about data. Pretty cool stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And how to move from point A to point B.
Okay. That's all I got for today.
Does anybody have any questions or so? We have a few minutes.
I'll be dropping in the chat the EM evaluation for today's session if you all could take a few moments. to fill that out, that would be great.
And just any other thoughts? Who's actually really working? Who's out there out of the 14 people or so, or 12 people we have? Who's really working on a real project? If I can see it, if you just put it in the chat. Working on a real project, and what is the project? We would love to actually see it. And it's nothing like, say, real life. Is anybody working on a project? Does anybody have a goal that they think that they might not be able to reach? Ambulatory care, absolutely. So Nicole, say more, ma'am. Ambulatory care, what are you trying to work on? If we can have just a little dialogue. Restructuring the dental clinics, ooh, nice.
So I'm over at the hospital and clinics, and we're working on trying to find ways to improve care efficiency and improve patient access to care. So
Okay, patient access to care.
a lot of
Perfect.
potential
And,
projects in there.
And what are you thinking about using as measures? So when we say patient access to care, are we waiting in the ED or getting them up to a bed or?
Probably, so in the outpatient clinics, so probably.
Okay, so there's outpatient. Okay, so is it, like
Number of
first, third
patients
available
seen,
appointment
yeah,
or?
the third next available, all
Okay.
those things. Yeah, provider
Okay.
availability, clinic
Provider
utilization.
availability? Okay, super. That's a great one. Okay, and so Gene, I see yours here, improving client race SOGI data collection to identify healthcare disparities. That's awesome. So the catch there would be is kind of like Roberta was saying, okay, now a project like that would actually start with what does the data currently tell you right now? So we collect this data right now, or a lack of collection. We know we have a lot more people out there versus what we're physically able to collect. How do we know something? Or is it anecdotal, or is it? So those are the things to start thinking about. And then say, Letty, with the dental clinics, by restructuring, say more, ma'am.
Hi, so pretty much building them from the ground up in a sense. Yeah, so my supervisor was assigned to be over the dental clinic. So I've just been going in, making rounds with him, determined that a lot of the dental equipment is on pretty much life support right now. So connecting with vendors, getting quotes to replace a lot of the equipment because dental is equipment heavy. So from a personnel standpoint, my supervisor is restructuring the entire department, setting expectations and then just making sure that the staff are following policies and procedures, especially during survey. But my portion is more environment equipment based.
How many dental clinics do you have?
The county has 3 dental clinics in West County, Pittsburgh, and Martinez. So coordinating with the other facility managers as well. So it's quite a bit, but it's getting there.
Okay, super. And so since your piece is the equipment obsolescence, or are you actually doing an inventory of this is all the equipment that we currently have in all 3 locations? And this is the use of the equipment and the age, et cetera, that type of thing?
Yes, correct.
Okay, super. And then based on once you get that, you're going to say, okay, hey, we have X% that should be replaced or should be something.
Yes, correct. And some of, in doing this, finding out that some of the equipment is actually loaned from the vendor and they're asking for their stuff back. So that's another thing. So it's just a matter of, because these things are really expensive, it's a lengthy process with the capital purchases. So there's a lot of people involved in this.
That's an awesome project. Awesome. This is a perfect vehicle for it. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and you're going to have to stratify, okay, equipment on loan, equipment just old, it should be replaced. what are all the different buckets?
It sounds like you have a plethora of options there. And I think your challenge, will be picking one maybe specifically, for this purposes. And really thinking about, well, what is the differences? Mariah mentioned a good project, bad project, ongoing operational workflow that needs to be done versus really identifying a problem that you then want to experiment with adjusting over time. If it's like such as tracking these dental chairs or what needs to be going back to the vendor and understanding why did we get to a point where we weren't maybe tracking as well, and other opportunities to track better.
That might be the start.
Exactly, yes. So I mean, it's something new that I'm learning because I'm not familiar with any of this stuff. So I'm learning as I go.
Great.
Super. Well, we're here to help, and that's a great project as well, too. Okay. Any others? It's almost 12:58. Any others who would like to share what they're thinking about, real work that's on their plate? Behavioral health or behavioral access line?
We are working on improving the compliance with the call logging requirements for our call center. Oh,
Okay, so more sleep, but for the behavioral health access line, it appears to be improving compliance with call login requirements. So are we answering the phone and not going through the proper triage, or not answering the phone? Say more with this one.
There's certain logging requirements for each call that we get from beneficiaries, and so there's something that the state looks for that we're supposed to be documenting, and and just making sure we're meeting all those requirements.
Okay. So it's actually, currently right now you have some type of form or something that you're going back and auditing and say, okay, did we do X, Y, Z from either state or a reimbursement perspective?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so we have a internal audit procedure where there's some test calls, and we're getting that feedback at least quarterly on whether the required requirements were completed.
And so a good thing there would be, okay, hey, find out what proportion are not meeting compliance requirements. Then that becomes your SMART goal in terms of the starting point. Currently we're only meeting compliance 45% of the time, making that up. And our goal is to get this up to 95% of the time by, August 31st, 2024.
Yes, exactly.
And then this is then start thinking about what actions are we going to take to actually make that occur. And that's where you can actually really use some of these tools and principles and some of the thinking. But anyway, I know we're about out of time. Turn it back over to you, Roberto or Nisa. And thank you all for coming. And so next time, have a real SMART goal, start your projects, or actually say, okay, this is my thoughts around how to do this. And then what we want to do is just go deeper, roll up our sleeves, and actually make this more of a working session, information sharing or learning session.
you nailed it, Dennis. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you next time. Please contribute towards the evaluation as you can.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Bye now.
Thanks, Dennis.